File 15.
In the morning, Nicholas did not meet us at the appointed place, so we went to his home to see what the matter was. His mother said, "His father is all out of patience with these goings-on, and will not have any more of it. Half the time when Nick is needed, he's not to be found. Then it turns out that he's been gadding around with you two. His father gave him a flogging last night. It always grieved me before, and many's the time I've begged him off and saved him, but this time he appealed to me in vain, for I was out of patience myself." "I wish you had saved him just this one time," I said, my voice trembling a little. "It would ease a pain in your heart to remember it some day." She was ironing at the time, and her back was partly towards me. She turned about with a startled or wondering look in her face and said, "What do you mean by that?" I was not prepared and didn't know anything to say, so it was awkward, for she kept looking at me. But Seppi was alert and spoke up. "Why, of course, it would be pleasant to remember, for the very reason we were out so late was that Nicholas got to telling us how good you are to him, and how he never got whipped when you were there to save him. And he was so full of it, and we were so full of the interest of it, that none of us noticed how late it was getting." "Did he say that? Did he?" And she put her apron to her eyes. "You can ask Theodore. He will tell you the same." "Oh, it's a dear good lad, my Nick," she said. "I'm sorry I let him get whipped. I will never do it again. To think, all the time I was sitting here last night, fretting and angry at him, he was loving me and praising me. Oh, dear, dear, if we could only know, then we shouldn't ever go wrong. But we are only poor, dumb beasts groping around and making mistakes. I shan't ever think of last night without a pang." She was like all the rest. It seemed as if nobody could open a mouth in these wretched days without saying something that made us shiver. They were groping around, and did not know what true, sorrowfully true things they were saying by accident. Seppi asked if Nicholas might go out with us. "I'm sorry," she answered, "but he can't. To punish him further, his father doesn't allow him to go out of the house today." We had a great hope. I could see it in Seppi's eyes. We thought, if he cannot leave the house, he cannot be drowned. Seppi asked to make sure, "Must he stay in all day, or only the morning?" "All day. It's such a pity, too. It's a beautiful day, and he's so unused to being shut up. But he's busy planning his party, and maybe that is company for him. I do hope he isn't too lonesome." Seppi saw that in her eye which emboldened him to ask if we might go up and help him pass the time. "And welcome," she said right heartily. "Now I call that real friendship, when you might be abroad in the fields and the woods, having a happy time. You are good boys, I'll allow that, though you don't always find satisfactory ways of improving it. Take these cakes for yourselves, and give him this one, from his mother." The first thing we noticed when we entered Nicholas's room was the time, 10:15. Could that be correct? Only such a few minutes to live? I felt a contraction at my heart. Nicholas jumped up and gave us a glad welcome. He was in good spirits over his plannings for his party, and had not been lonesome. "Sit down," he said, "and look at what I've been doing. And I've finished a kite that you will say is a beauty. It's drying in the kitchen. I'll fetch it." He had been spending his penny savings in fanciful trifles of various kinds, to go as prizes in the games, and they were marshalled with fine and showy effect upon the table. He said, "Examine them at your leisure, while I get Mother to touch up the kite with her iron, if it isn't dry enough yet." Then he tripped out and went cluttering downstairs, whistling. We did not look at the things. We couldn't take any interest in anything but the clock. We sat staring at it in silence, listening to the ticking, and every time the minute hand jumped, we nodded recognition. 1 minute fewer to cover in the race for life or for death. Finally, Seppi drew a deep breath and said, 2 minutes to 10. 7 minutes more, and he'll pass the death point. Oh, Theodore, he's going to be saved. He's going to— Hush! I'm on needles. Watch the clock and keep still. 5 minutes more. We were panting with the strain and the excitement. Another 3 minutes, and there was a footstep on the stair. Saved! And we jumped up and faced the door. The old mother entered, bringing the kite. "Isn't it a beauty?" she said. "And dear me, how he has slaved over it, ever since daylight, I think, and only finished it a while before you came." She stood it against the wall and stepped back to take a view of it. "He drew the pictures his own self, and I think they're very good. The church isn't so very good, I'll have to admit, but look at the bridge. Anyone can recognize the bridge in a minute. He asked me to bring it up. Oh, dear me, it's 7 minutes past 10, and I— But where is he? He— Oh, he'll be here soon. He's just gone out a minute." "Gone out?" "Yes. Just as he came downstairs, little Lisa's mother came in and said that the child had wandered off somewhere, and as she was a little uneasy, I told Nicholas to never mind about his father's orders, to go and look her up." "Why, how white you two do look! I do believe you're sick. Sit down. I'll fetch you something. That cake has disagreed with you. It is a little heavy, but I thought—" She disappeared without finishing her sentence, and we hurried at once to the back window and looked toward the river. There was a great crowd at the other end of the bridge, and people were flying toward that point from every direction. "Oh, it's all over. Poor Nicholas. Why, oh, why did she let him get out of the house?" "Come away," said Seppi, half sobbing. "Come quick. We can't bear to meet her. In 5 minutes she will know." But we were not to escape. She came upon us at the foot of the stairs, with her cordials in her hands, and made us come in and sit down and take the medicine. Then she watched the effect, and it did not satisfy her, so she made us wait longer, and kept upbraiding herself for giving us the unwholesome cake. Presently the thing happened which we were dreading. There was a sound of tramping and scraping outside, and a crowd came solemnly in, with their heads uncovered, and laid the 2 drowned bodies on the bed. "Oh, my God!" that poor mother cried out, and fell on her knees, and put her arms about her dead boy, and began to cover the wet face with kisses. "Oh, it was I that sent him, and I have been his death. If I had obeyed and kept him in the house, this would not have happened, and I'm rightly punished. I was cruel to him last night, and him begging me, his own mother, to be his friend." And so she went on, and all the women cried and pitied her, and tried to comfort her. But she could not forgive herself, and could not be comforted, and kept on saying if she had not sent him out, he would be alive and well now, and she was the cause of his death. It shows how foolish people are when they blame themselves for anything they have done. Satan knows, and he said nothing happens that your first act hasn't arranged to happen and made inevitable. And so of your own motion you can't ever alter the scheme or do a thing that will break a link. Next we heard screams, and Frau Brandt came wildly ploughing and plunging through the crowd, with her dress in disorder and hair flying loose, and flung herself upon her dead child with moans and kisses and pleadings and endearments. And by she rose up almost exhausted with her outpourings of passionate emotion, and clenched her fist, and lifted it toward the sky, and her tear-drenched face grew hard and resentful, and she said, "For nearly 2 weeks I've had dreams and presentiments and warnings that death was going to strike what was most precious to me, and day and night and day I have grovelled in the dirt before him, praying him to have pity on my innocent child, and save it from harm. And here is his answer." Why, he had saved it from harm, but she did not know. She wiped the tears from her eyes and cheeks, and stood a while gazing down at the child, and caressing its face and its hair with her hands. Then she spoke again in that bitter tone. "But in his hard heart is no compassion. I will never pray again." She gathered her dead child to her bosom, and strode away, the crowd falling back to let her pass, and smitten dumb by the awful words they had heard. Oh, that poor woman! It is, as Satan said, we do not know good fortune from bad, and are always mistaking the one for the other. Many a time since I have heard people pray to God to spare the life of sick persons, but I have never done it. Both funerals took place at the same time in our little church next day. Everybody was there, including the party guests. Satan was there too, which was proper, for it was on account of his efforts that the funerals had happened. Nikolaus had departed this life without absolution, and a collection was taken up for masses to get him out of purgatory. Only 2/3 of the required money was gathered, and the parents were going to try to borrow the rest. But Satan furnished it. He told us privately that there was no purgatory, but he had contributed in order that Nicholas's parents and their friends might be saved from worry and distress. We thought it very good of him, but he said money did not cost